Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 144 of the Citrix Session. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. Got a big group with me today. Everybody's happy. It's fall. It's officially fall, at least here in the U.S. And we got a good blog for you guys today talking about ServiceNow and Citrix ITSM Adapter integration stuff. We've been covering that a little bit lately. It's a big part of the XenTegra motion. I told the guys, today is September 25th, 2023. Told the guys I was going to do this, and I'm going to start doing this in our podcast. I just want to throw out there's the mini commercial time, and then we'll get into the content. If you are a Citrix customer, if you are a ServiceNow customer, and you're not getting value-added advisement from your existing partner or from the vendor or a combination of the both, that's what we're doing here. You combo the both. Now you really got something. Let us know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Andy Whiteside on LinkedIn. We want to help you guys. There's so much more customers could be doing to get value out of their investments in products like Citrix and ServiceNow. So that's it. That's the commercial. Just want to help people, and we'll make a good business and help people at the same time. All right. So no Bill Sutton today. Bill's somewhere on a beach, I hope. I don't actually know, but he's somewhere on a beach. I hope that's what he's doing. I've got my normal crew from the cloud software group, Geremy, Meyers, Todd Smith, to start with. You are almost always with us. Todd, Geremy, how's it going?
Excellent. Well. Excellent. I hope he's on a beach that is dry. So we just had the storm blow through. So I don't know where he went, but
the best part of those storms, they come through and then it's nice for like 4 or 5 days afterwards.
That's true. That's true. Nice and calm.
Todd, did you find a bed long enough for you in your cabin?
I did, and actually spent Saturday night up there and found a couple of fresh bear tracks.
Now, when you go up there, you go up there by yourself?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. You have internet access up there?
It's very, very spotty.
Yep.
But the state of Maine got a huge amount of funding to solve the rural internet problem. So they're putting fiber all over the place. So
I think I saw something about that. It's like extremely expensive to do it, but the tax dollars are paying for it, so it's cheap for them.
Yeah. There was one town, they're spending a little over $1 million to wire up less than 100 houses.
Oh, man.
Wow. Well, I mean, you could help out, Todd. If I saw Facebook correctly, you've got a brand new piece of hardware. You could trench all that yourself.
Yeah, I got a couple of new pieces. I got a couple new pieces of hardware. It's I guess it's when you go out and buy a boat, they said the two best times in buying a boat or when owning a boat is the day you buy it, the day you sell it.
Yeah.
I think the same can be said with farm tractors.
I grew up on a very small 1.5 acres, but we had 2 tractors and mini boats. And we constantly worked on stuff. Constantly. Yeah. Todd, do you have internet access in your actual cabin that you sleep in?
No, but I just, so surprisingly enough, I just got power put in. So I'm running basically a giant extension cord over to the other building. And then I've got I put in my chemical toilet. So it's kind of off grid, but it's not exactly off grid.
Sounds pretty off grid. So,
but it's good to not have internet access sometimes.
So, okay, so this is what I'm trying to get to. Tell me what latency looks like when you do have connectivity from this cabin or this area, this land.
So I've tried it out a couple of different times. So probably my most successful connection is done via my hotspot on my phone. And I've got an AT&T hotspot. And the predominant or the presumptive carrier up there is Verizon. So even with an AT&T connecting over a lot of Verizon infrastructure, it's still pretty good. Not as slightly above dial-up. Remember that those days, but it's not bad.
Definitely.
Yeah, depending on what I want to do, I can actually get pretty good results.
Well, let's talk so give me an idea. What's latency look like? How many millisecond round trip?
220.
220, okay. And then so you've tried some Citrix sessions over that?
I did. I actually logged into a virtual desktop last December up there from a hotspot.
So 220 with minimal packet loss.
Yep.
From the woods plenty good enough to do a normal Citrix session. You're not going to watch videos over that.
I'm not going to be reading an MRI.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be doing high-end graphics videos. Haven't done a lot with Zoom conferencing yet, but I'm expecting, video quality to go down. The audio quality seems to be fine.
Yeah. Well, you prioritize it.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm getting at in this whole conversation. We're going to talk about ServiceNow integration here in a minute. So I've got the ITSM adapter. Let's say somebody has a Citrix session above 225 milliseconds. I automatically open a ticket so that when you call, like the ticket's already open and waiting on you because I know you're going to call. Maybe 225 is a bad example these days. It would have been a good example back in the day. But maybe it's packet loss, and maybe you got 225, but you've got like 10% packet loss. I go ahead and with the ITSM adapter and ServiceNow and open a ticket, and you start to chat and go, "Oh, we already know. Here's what you need to do." How awesome would that be?
And I'm gonna go one step further on this one. If I were to also leverage something like our performance analytics to start detecting what that user experience is and proactively open up a ticket based on poor performance, like network latency or something like that, where it's outside of the norm, have it automatically open up a ticket with AT&T or Comcast or the cable provider, or notify the user, hey, you know what, you're in a degraded state. Here's what we have done ahead of time before you start having to open up a support ticket.
Yep.
Right. So much more proactive about this, and actually treat the end users like they are legitimate customers.
Yeah.
Because one thing we've seen with Shadow IT is that, hey, even our own employees, even our own users have the ability to make a change or do something different.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. All right. So go back to my commercial a minute ago. If you were working with a ServiceNow partner that doesn't know what we just talked about, come talk to XenTegra. If you're working with a Citrix partner that doesn't have the ability to do ServiceNow for you, come talk to XenTegra. All right, that's my commercial again. All right, so we have two special guests, Charlie Lopez, who was some type of technical sales support solutions. Charlie, what's the actual title these days?
My title today is Partner Technology Strategist. So I support the partners from a technical enablement and technical strategy, and of course on the sales side.
And a big part of what you're doing these days is ServiceNow related, because that's why we got you on this podcast. You're one of the Shmies over there.
I try and be as much as I can. I do.
Were you a ServiceNow guy prior to joining Citrix, or you picked that up while at Cloud Software Group?
Well, I mean, I've been at Citrix about 12 years now. So my work with ServiceNow has always been kind of spotty, depending on what customer would bring in what request, and trying to find out what the integrations were like. I'd go in and dig into the technology and be able to relate back to the customer and essentially talk it through with them. So that was primarily most of my digging into ServiceNow, is really getting familiar with the product to be able to relay the integrations of Citrix with it to customers.
Do you guys on your team, do you have your own ServiceNow sandbox you can play with all this stuff?
We do. I've had multiple. I even had one that we're going to share out with you guys as a team, so we could kind of tinker with it and mess with. But we definitely have the ability to provision multiple ones for testing.
That's awesome. That sounds like fun stuff.
It is, especially when you get to the customization piece. It takes a little bit more knowledge. I think Amir would be, I tried to go in to create a custom workflow that was very intricate, and I realized I needed a little bit more expertise, but it did open my eyes to how much customization could be done if you knew what you were doing in the back end. So it was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Amir Trujillo is with us. Amir, I get closer on the last name this time.
There we go. Yeah, you're mastering my last name for sure.
I just try not to think about it. I just say what should come out, and it just.
I can say Trujillo. Yeah, that's fine.
Really? Okay. Got it. All right. So Amir is our definite subject matter expert from the Cloud Software Group Citrix side. And Amir, we're glad to have you here, and we're gonna talk to you a lot now. So you'll get plenty of time to weave in some of your expertise as we do that.
Oh.
So I'm pulling up the blog. The blog is titled. The title of the blog, I've got a screen in front of here. Extend ServiceNow capabilities with the Citrix ITSM Adapter service. Amir, before we jump into the blog, the ITSM Adapter for Citrix is available where? How much does it cost? And why does it exist?
Yeah, that's for free. And actually, that's on the ServiceNow store website. Pretty simple. You just, on the search bar, you just type Citrix and automatically it will show up on the website. And it's just a single click and you install it on your ServiceNow instance. And it's going to be pretty straightforward, the configuration.
Yeah. So that little piece was very important. So you go to the ServiceNow store, you look for Citrix, you type in Citrix.
Yep.
And is it an app or an integration?
It's just Citrix, and you'll see the Citrix IT Service Management connector. There you go.
So what's the difference between an app and solutions filter versus an integrations filter?
This integration, it comes with the connector software. So that's to make it easier for the end user, for the administrators, to just with a single click have all the requirements to be up and running quickly.
Yeah. But it's the plumbing, and then what you do with the plumbing is up to your imagination or maybe help from Citrix and or a partner.
Yeah, with the plugin, basically what you do is integrate all the Citrix features to your ServiceNow instance.
Yeah.
So all the customization, all the workflows out of the box, a virtual agent that we're going to be discussing during this episode comes with as part of the plugin that we're going to be installing.
Yeah. Okay. So before we go into the blog itself, Todd, Geremy, Charlie, any thoughts, without stealing the thunder of the blog later, any thoughts about the plugin, the integration, what Citrix is doing there, whether people are using it or not, just your general ideas of the concept before we jump into the blog?
Yeah, so I just put this link in the chat, Andy. So it's first things first is, who gets access to this, right? So as part of the feature matrix, if you're a Citrix DaaS Premium or Premium Plus customer, you've already got access to the ITSM Adapter. So what that means is we've got a whole slew of customers. In fact, one of our largest install bases are Citrix DaaS Premium customers. They already have access and might not even know that, right? So just first things first, just be aware of that. And then secondly, I think because of that, we're working to help drive some of the adoption because a lot of folks don't know this. So they are ServiceNow customers. They are Citrix customers who already own this. Here's a great, something that's easy. Well, I wouldn't say it's easy to turn up. It's easy to integrate. But then the customized workflows and really, building this out so it supports your environment is the most important thing. But, take a look. You might own this. This is the most important thing to remember here.
Yeah. So if you own Citrix and you own the right, and I'm sorry, I just screwed that up. What edition of Citrix do I need on?
DaaS Premium or Premium Plus.
Okay. All right. Got it right here. And if you own ServiceNow, then shame on you if you're not at least investigating how to tie these two together.
Exactly.
Todd, Charlie, anything to add?
I think this is a really great question because I think one of the other aspects of it is even though you're running DaaS or you're licensing DaaS, you can also have visibility into the on-prem components too, right?
Yep. So it is a cloud service, yet it also works with on-premise CVAD deployments. So that's a really good point, Todd.
Yeah, and that's a direct connection. When you do a site aggregation on your cloud service, you are having that link or bridge between your on-premises Citrix side and the ITSM service. So yeah, definitely you can apply those ServiceNow rules to any Citrix side.
So this brings to fruition the idea that everybody should probably be moving to and using the Citrix Cloud Control Plane, because taking this and plugging it in with that, in this case, Citrix and ServiceNow, it really becomes enabled through that cloud-based management plane.
Yeah, and that's a really important concept, Andy. So, we've got a slide that is not really the point of this podcast here, but, we've got a lot of customers who are transitioning to the universal license, which means, they've got CVAD, they've got the on-premise support. They also have DaaS and all the DaaS services. That doesn't necessarily mean on day one, you're moving even your management plane to the cloud. The idea is you can start to leverage some of the cloud services into your on-premises environment. And one of the easier ones to get started with is the ITSM adapter. One of the next ones might be WEM. So there's services that you can integrate on-prem that doesn't mean you're necessarily leveraging DaaS yet.
Yep.
It's important.
All right. So jumping into the blog, Amir, this first section here that kind of sets up the blog and why we're covering it, you want to just kind of walk us through this and kind of highlight what they're covering?
Yep. So basically, in this first couple of paragraphs, you can read that basically the story of ITSM and what Citrix has done in the last year, and all the enhancements and new features that we have added as part of this big initiative. That it's any customer, either if it's on-prem or cloud, just use what you have. If you have an on-prem, you have cloud with ServiceNow for both, just centralize everything for a single pane of glass. So with the use of intelligent automation as the first bullet here, same thing with make it easier to provision and deprovision resources, same thing, and everything from a management standpoint centralized on the same console. So that's part of the benefits that a Citrix administrator and the end user will live on a daily basis, having this integration.
Yeah, it's good for both, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And guys, I'll just kind of say the rest of you guys, things that you would add as it relates to covering this concept in general.
Well, I'll just add, for example, it really focuses on the manual effort. And a lot of this manual effort has been around for so long. And if customers are already leveraging ServiceNow for their typical help desk, it would be a marriage made in heaven. Just integrate this because of the automation. Anyone that's been running or having to deal with the Citrix environment will know that by automating a lot of this and even just looking at the details it provides, the intelligent automation is really about taking those standard processes that were manual every day and just scripting them out. And this is essentially taking Citrix Cloud DaaS, ServiceNow, and providing that automation and integration across it. So I think this is outstanding.
Yeah. Todd, Geremy, anything else?
I think Charlie hit on something that's really important. It's, anything you can do to automate something is obviously important, but more important is it's something that's repeatable, right? So if you've got lots of folks all solving an issue in different ways, it's really hard to figure out what someone did, right? So the idea here is if we can solve some of these problems the exact same way, they're repeatable, they're automated, they're easier to document. So we can start to trend things within the environment. So one of the things I think we'll get to later in the blog post here is
the workflow designer.
Is the idea that you can start automating some of these repeatable tasks and do it with the ServiceNow flow designer. So you can start to pop up what are folks calling in for, what are the trends, let's design around that.
Yeah. The way I kind of look at it is ServiceNow is the single place where you aggregate everything and manage everything from, and then maybe someday, and the end user can also interact with, and maybe someday with AI, it starts to become the brain of doing some of this or a lot of this for you.
Like ChatGPT, all you need is the right prompt to get a whole bunch of things done.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, like we were discussing before, just like if you use Citrix Analytics and at some point just have that level of knowledge to start detecting issues from an end user standpoint and create actions to prevent issues, it's awesome.
Yeah. So Amir, this next section, the title of it is Access Multiple Citrix Cloud Accounts from a Single ServiceNow Instance. Help us understand what that's talking about.
That talks about if you as a customer, probably you can have multiple ServiceNow instances, right? Or multiple Citrix Cloud environments as well for testing purposes, for production, UAT. So you don't want to go
fall out from mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So mergers and acquisitions, you don't want to go production the same time as you are just testing on your development environment. So you can register multiple Citrix sites on the single ServiceNow instance, and you can switch or just flip the switch to see what ServiceNow policies you want to apply. Yeah. And the same thing, when you do that integration, you have full visibility of all your environments, either if it's on-prem or cloud, and just specify what resource you want to publish through ServiceNow.
Yeah. So maybe in an ideal world, you got your production environment, you got a validation environment. Both of them are talking to ServiceNow, and then maybe Charlie and Geremy both have sandbox environments. All those could be talking to ServiceNow, and you could literally test and document your change control process each step of the way, and you'd have this IT nirvana that we've been talking about forever.
Right, that's right. And let's say Geremy has a set of applications or desktop in a delivery group. Same thing with Todd, but we just want to granularly provide access to one desktop from each environment. We can do that from ServiceNow. So we don't have to publish everything in a single shot. It's just like one by one, just to make sure that we are testing the appropriate policy.
So Charlie, have we covered this section? Have we said what we need to say about the multi one instance managing multiple Citrix environments?
Well, I'll just throw this in there as well. This to me speaks growth. We're growing the service. We found that there were bottlenecks, and we found out that a lot of customers, not just from a dev perspective, but we have customers that have multiple production environments in cloud. And when you're trying to do reporting, anything around alerts, it clearly is showing that by being able to itemize the customer IDs now, we're able to look at all the details within those environments and itemize them specifically to those DaaS customers. So even from a reporting and alert perspective, your visibility is much better now because you don't have to have all those different service instances to go in and look at the reporting. You're all doing the reporting all within one instance. As we always say, single pane of glass, if you will.
Well, and that gets to the reason why XenTegra implemented ServiceNow internally to begin with. It was to get our handle around the IT sprawl that we've got going on and be prepared to better understand it today and better manage it into the future. Okay. Todd, Geremy, anything about this section you would want to call out?
The one thing I'll call out is, first of all, I had this question come up this week, and I shot Amir a note, and he kind of provided some clarity. But the important thing to note here is each Citrix cloud tenant can only, I'm going to use the wrong word here, sort of peer with one ServiceNow instance. But on the flip side, and what we've got here is you've got one ServiceNow instance, and I don't know if there's a limit on this, but can obviously peer or manage multiple Citrix cloud scenarios or instances here, which is pretty neat. So what we've noticed, what I've seen before is, not only do we have test dev, production, and things like that, but we've also got, I've got a footprint maybe in the US. I've got another cloud tenant that might be sitting like APJ, right, for whatever reason. But if you've got multiple instances, regardless of why you've got them, pulling them together, and then secondly, just the things that you can pull into ServiceNow. So in the blog post here, it's specifically calling out published apps, but machine catalogs, delivery groups, application groups, even, these are the granular levels of data that you can actually import into your ServiceNow instance. So you can get pretty flexible with what you do.
Todd, anything else?
And I think that to add on to that, I think that's critical because that's where a lot of customers are running their farms currently, right? So there's still a lot of legacy farms out there. So this is not a new concept to have one pane of glass to kind of see all of what's going on across the board. But the interesting thing is, Geremy just mentioned this earlier about having customer conversations where they're asking for more and more, what can I do with what I already have type of question. So we used to refer to this as application rationalization, which was, what do we have and who's using it and what are we getting for value out of it? And what we're seeing an awful lot of, at least conversations that I've been having recently, has been around, how do I make sure I don't have shelfware? How do I make sure that my users, my employees that are currently using systems that we're paying for, how do we know that they're actually being used? What's the performance? Are they effective? And if you don't have good sources of data for that, though, you're kind of taking shots in the dark, right? So access to the information that's going to be provided by ServiceNow is going to show you not only what people are using because of the volume of tickets, what is their overall satisfaction level? Because once again, it drives back to that conversation earlier about, the users now have the ability to kind of use whatever tools or different types of tools. regardless of whether corporate IT is giving those out or not.
And they will.
Yep.
All right, Amir, next section talks about the new dashboard for monitoring events from Citrix. If you can get stuff into a dashboard, it certainly makes it easier for the human beings to understand it. Forget about AI for a minute. Help us understand this part.
Yep. This talks about the new connection that we have with ADM. That's another service, a Citrix service that it's from Application Delivery Manager. And just to give you just a little bit of background for those that are not very familiar with ADM, this is, long story short, that's a service that will help you to centralize your NetScaler administration. So just imagine that you can, instead of going to the console and see how your NetScaler or your networking environment is behaving, just automate that with ServiceNow and have incidents or events trigger based on all the data that you are gathering from the ADM service into the ServiceNow console. So you can monitor if a SSL certificate is going to expire, if you have some issues with your networking environment, if you have some packets dropping and stuff like that, if one of your nodes on your NetScaler is having issues. So being proactive from a networking standpoint is giving you not only a resources access like applications and desktops. So we are going further and say, let's see how your networking is working, and going back to how's the latency affecting your users. What's the user experience if you are connecting from a cabin or if you are on a local network? So stuff like that from a ServiceNow standpoint, in this automation, it's going to give you more visibility of your environment from both applications and a networking standpoint.
Charlie, what do you have to add to that? Because I am sure that visibility is a conversation you have with customers have all the time.
It is a lot of the details that Amir really covered. He's covered it very well. Usually when we're looking at visibility, a lot of the conversations wrap around gateway and wanting to find out what's going on with the gateway. And for the most part, if customers are not leveraging ADM, they're really missing out a lot of the intricate details, the insights that are in there. So being able to pull in the insights from ADM into ServiceNow gives you that full visibility for end to end. I mean, I like how the article even reads, acts as a single source of truth that enables you to view critical alerts and notifications. Well, everything all in one place is what we always preach. And I think this is a great addition to put the ADM events side by side with your CVAD and your Citrix Cloud events to get that full visibility across the board. And just to add into Amir's point, he mentioned all the different actions and information that it pulls from. It literally pulls any NetScaler events in. So, I mean, it's going to be able to pull a lot of that data from ADM into.
Yeah. I like the fact that in this one place, you're pulling those two things together and you're not having to pay for a third-party product to do it. And you're possibly pulling in other ecosystem players at the same time. You get a view in one place of how it all comes together. Geremy, Todd, other thoughts on this?
This is pretty slick. Like, I didn't realize that we could do this until I read this blog post, but there's a feature inside of ADM that'll actually let you create ServiceNow notifications. So essentially, the monitoring server on ADM can monitor anything you want on an ADC. So as granular, as weird as you want to get, go for it, because you can create a notification based on that and actually shoot that off to to ServiceNow. This is very slick, actually. In fact, I'm looking at the NetScaler article now. I'll post this in the chat, but it's very cool.
So Todd, imagine you're in the woods. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just the increased amount of visibility you can have, and think about if we can start gathering information at the network level, that's where a lot of outages start, especially on communications outage, whether they be, disconnects or whether they be a reduction in service levels or things like that. I mean, just that visibility of being able to pull that information in from ADM and being able to automatically trigger some type of investigation and addressing and resolving the issue right before it becomes big.
Yeah.
You know,
And Todd,
before-
maybe it may not be happening there, but it's the first place it's going to be visible.
absolutely.
Well, and here's the thing too. I mean, listen, the team that is monitoring the Citrix environment, the folks that are, keeping tabs on the ServiceNow, alerts. I mean, they aren't NetScaler people; they are networking people. So if we can go to them and say, "Hey, listen, networking team, these are the things, these are the key performance indicators for our Citrix environment. Could you create rules on it? And let's keep an eye on these things and have it hit ServiceNow." You have folks who have no idea how the network works, who have some insights and performance. Just based on these metrics here. Let's just look.
All right, moving to the next section, enhanced integration with ServiceNow virtual agent. I think every time we've spoken about ServiceNow, we talk about the virtual agent. This is, I was listening to a podcast on the way into work this morning that was talking about, search engines plus virtual agent plus AI. We're going to get to a point at some point you just kind of talk to your computer, your phone, whatever your computer is, and it knows a little bit about you and knows how to figure out what you're asking for and comes back with viable results that do something. Amir, what's the goal of the enhanced integration with the ServiceNow virtual agent here?
Yeah, the goal is to make it easier to the end user. So either if you are an end user that it's used to use the ServiceNow portal and go to request something, or you're more virtual applications interaction with a virtual agent, it's the way that you gotta go. Basically, we are putting all together from a portal look and feel to a virtual agent where it's going to start asking you questions and walking you through what you need on your daily basis. If you want to request something, because the virtual agent in ServiceNow is not only for issues, it's to procure something. It's just like, I need a server, I need a virtual desk or run application, access to some resources for my daily basis. If it's something to report an issue, I'll walk, my virtual agent is going to walk me through the way to either troubleshoot it by myself or escalate an issue to my Citrix administrators. So I'm going to save time being on the phone with this help desk representative. And in the other hand, the company is going to have a cost reduction because this automation with the virtual agent, it's going to save man hours trying to troubleshoot basic issues from an end user standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, is there a world where I don't even open a chat bot at some point? I just start talking to the ServiceNow app and all this is happening and it's talking to me as if it's a human, or I'm typing into a chat bot, either way. And I'm saving time and becoming more effective and aligning with how the next generation, maybe the current generation, wants to work.
Right.
Yeah. Charlie, what do you want to add here?
Well, I mean, I personally am one to not want to call for help. And I think a lot of people could probably relate to that, wanting to be able to solve their own issues. And then once you're essentially living within one of these collaboration tools, it just makes sense that this is going to really help those users to be able to just get things done on their own without having to go through the hassle of not only spending time creating the ticket and calling in and stuff. But one of the things that I wanted to add on to what Amir was saying was, not only could users go in and try and reset their sessions, but the system is also intelligent enough to find, for example, that maybe a session is not even there and open a ticket for you. So it can go further beyond just, taking action based on your request, but also knowing that your request is invalid based on some metric it's not finding, and then taking an action on top of that and saying, let me go put a request for him because there's no session there. So it really is going to be the future of self-service support, leveraging any of these, whether it's Teams, Slack, the chat bot, and then we'll see if Alexa gets tied in here one day. It'd be nice to be able to just ask your computer, I need a desktop, preferably from Japan, because I'm doing work in that region.
Yeah.
A couple of minutes, I get a desktop provision, and I'm working in that region.
I am literally the guy who still wants to talk to people. However, if the chat bot got smarter, I would rather talk to the chat bot. I don't really want you to ask me how my day is going and what the weather's like. I want you just to fix my problem. I'm literally downloading the ServiceNow app onto my phone. I didn't realize it wasn't on here. because I want to get to a point someday where I can just talk to that app. And it gets straight to the point where maybe it even learns me and decides, hey, this guy doesn't want to chit chat. He just wants an answer.
Well, some people are efficient that way. They kind of are geared that way. Sometimes it may come off as non-conversational. No, just want to get things done. Chatbox does what I need it to without burning additional cycles I don't have time to burn. So it makes sense. It would be perfect for those that just want to get things done and move on quickly.
It's like people that want to go live out in the woods by themselves. Oh, Todd, what do you think about this part?
I think the biggest thing, and this has been a bane of most support organizations' existence, is the repetition of questions that we have to ask the customer every single time. So when you call into support, you tend to get asked, what's your account number? What's your name? Who's your manager? What number is the best number to call back on? What's your issue? You're 6 or 7 questions deep before you start asking and getting asked questions about what your real problem is. Then it spawns a whole bunch of other questions, because then you have to realize that the person who's looking up your in their knowledge base, they're looking up information that's going to help you. It relies heavily on the right search terms and the right verbiage that's been put into not only the search engine of it, but also all of the content that it's searching through, the entire database, right? You get little, it's too complex of an environment to say, hey, we're going to have standardized answers for everything. And that's where one of the big values of AI, it's going to be able to sift through all those nuances in languages to be able to go and find answers for you quickly. And it's going to eliminate, when someone's asking you what the weather is in Huntersville, Andy, it's there. That's a stalling tactic.
Yeah.
Because something's happening in the back end on their system to figure out what the problem is.
So I did 2 tours of duty at Microsoft on Active Directory support, and I would have to stall, and then I'd go ask Jason, who was my manager, a couple questions, and then try to decipher his answer back to what if something was listening and it could start prompting, hey, it sounds like this is a similar situation to the case that was open 3 months ago. Have you looked at this case and how they resolved it? That'd be awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Geremy, anything to add?
No, this is great. I mean, listen, I'm looking at this going, this looks a lot like the DMV site on the North Carolina website. So this is how I do my registrations these days. And you know what? I've been doing it this way 2 or 3 years. It's pretty dang good. I think the one thing that most folks give virtual assistants a hard time about have been just they have been looking for years on like keywords, right? They're trying to pick out what it is you're trying to say. I think what's different is they've really sort of evolved into this natural learning algorithm. So they understand the context now. They understand what you're asking, why you're asking it, how you're asking it. And I mean, the better that these things get, I'll be honest, I'd much prefer talking to a chatbot, even if it seems like it's human.
So I know this isn't true, but in my head, I envision that something like 15 people one person managing 15 chatbots, and it's actually, and that person's back there Googling behind the chatbots. I know that's not how it works, but that's what my head thinks is happening.
Yeah.
That may be how it works today, but it won't work that way in the future.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Amir, next section, Citrix ITSM, Information Technology Service Management, tables, information in the developer document. So is this breaking down what's been documented? What is this talking about?
This is awesome. That's one of the advanced features that we have for ServiceNow integration, because it talks about the custom workflows. And this bridge that we have, or this integration with the workflow designer from ServiceNow, that basically Citrix is giving you a custom workflows first out of the box, or the repetitive tasks that we do. And in the other hand, this advanced feature where it's going to give you custom flows where you're going to add inputs and outputs, and automatically it's creating the script for you. So as a ServiceNow developer, you are able to start creating workflows for Citrix depending on your needs. So this is an advanced feature that it's open to all the customers, and but makes your lives easier for sure, because it's going to use the APIs from Citrix Cloud to use these queries to our Citrix DAS service, and create the provisioning workflows to get applications, generate reports, work with the user session, either if you want to reset the session or if you want to log up the user from the current application. You can run PowerShell scripts on the end user virtual machine as well, being remote. So all the power of a ServiceNow on the administration team will give you these features more and more advanced as you want. So you can basically query the database and do whatever you want to do on these custom workflows.
Charlie, what else to add? I think you're on mute.
Yep.
Similar to the topic we were just covering, when we're looking at your standard patterns of activities that your typical employees, your users want to leverage, whether it's reset a session, these are standardized workflows that are set up and created. This takes it a step further, because when we're looking at not every customer has the standard workflows used for whether it's desktop provisioning or deprovisioning or resetting sessions. A lot of systems do have additional intricate, reporting systems that may need additional scripts to kick off. And by being able to have all this information available, customers that don't have your typical setup, like I had a customer who was what's the word? Sorry. So these cable companies have intricate billing systems in the back end that kick off concurrent sessions very quickly during a quick period of that setup. Well, this is a very customized workflow where an automated session kicks off. All this processing work is occurring before the session shut down. Well, this customized workflow can jump in here and pull data, all of those different activities occurring, and be able to essentially create a workflow to support that. So it's just taking customization to a different level to be able to support those custom workflows for those customers.
Yeah. And to add a little bit more here, we are going back to what's the goal or what's the feature of the end user experience and administration. Just imagine how intelligent this can become. We are adding these customized workflows integrated with a virtual agent. We can utilize Citrix Analytics to start getting all this data and start learning. And on top of that, all that integration, pushing proactive events. So that's a feature for an end user standpoint. Just if I have an engine that is going to tell me, from my workspace app, your networking, your network connection has some latency, so you want to go offline for a few, or you want to keep working. My analytics service is detecting some lucky connection, so instead of presenting an issue and creating a report for a downtime, we can do a workaround or something for you, end user. So I think that's the future of the end user experience. Yeah. Using all the options that Citrix is putting all together to enhance the user experience.
Yeah. So, Geremy, Todd, do you want to comment anything around the custom activities in the developer document that allows you to expand upon what you're trying to accomplish and continue to add functionality to it?
I mean, this is super. Go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, I think the key to any successful, services package that's out there is the ability to add customizations and do it easily. And I think this is one example of, you don't have to be a coder to make these customizations and actually build out these workflows. As long as you can think through a process, the toolkit seems to be very simple and easy to use.
You know, the thing about this is we're just talking about the ITSM adapter right now,
Right.
but, you know, in an enterprise environment, you've got, you know, probably lots of integrations all tied into this, right? So what's cool about this, I mean, this is like crazy nerdy. I'm looking at the actual developer documentation now, like the amount of data that you can pull out of,
Yeah.
you know, this environment and the amount of like, you know, methods and actions that you can do is pretty crazy. So the idea that maybe you've got this thing to like, so Charlie mentioned, you got this tied into your billing system somehow. That's awesome. So based on when a static desktop gets provisioned on the back end, you know, you've created a workflow that will go into the billing system, tie this to a customer, right? An internal, you know, job code, that sort of thing, or cost center. And on the flip side, if this thing doesn't get used for like 30 days, you deprovision it. And guess what? You go back to billing and you pull it right back out, right? So you know, the fact that you're creating workflows that, are leveraging the heck out of the ITSM adapter. I mean, think about it. You've got so many things tied in. I mean, it's really just the art of the possible at this point. Like what supports the business? You've got a lot of workflow that you can get done. And oh, by the way, I know a partner that can do it for you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm really getting at here is the limit. It's limitless. It's limitless, and you've got graphical representations like this to help you figure out how to get it done. Todd, I talk to people all the time, tell them about the ServiceNow world, and they're like, "Well, I'm not a developer." I'm like, "Well, you don't have to be. You just got to understand common sense and how to put pieces together." Can you do a puzzle? Yes. Okay, good. Then you can do this.
My first one of my first college coding classes was we had to write down the steps that it took to brush our teeth.
Yeah.
And if you could do that, then hey, it's basically, and that was a very linear process. It had a couple of little iterations in there and stuff like that, but it really kind of opened up your mind to, you know, the basics of coding. And ironically, it was in BASIC, but anyway, that's a dad joke. But it really kind of opened up your mind to what are some of the processes and what are some of, you know, what's the steps it takes to go through this. Nowadays, it's like you just talk into the computer and the next thing you know, it's actually writing code for you, or you use like Chat GPT to write the code as well, which
that could be pretty entertaining. Writing code to brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Just the while statement, while breath equals stinks, do.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people in our space, it's not necessarily coding. It's just being able to understand the workflow itself.
The workflow, yeah.
And a lot of people in our space, they write scripts. I mean, you don't have to be able to write code or even write scripts. You just have to be able to think through a workflow, understand the story, think through a workflow, and then the tool will help you put it together.
Yeah.
All right, Amir, it's the last section here talks about introducing new workflow enhancements. Help us understand what we're covering here.
That's part of the workflows that we've been discussing at the end. It's just how out of the box we can utilize those workflows to the provision static desktops. As Geremy said, if you have a desktop that is not being used for 30 days, just decommit it, stop paying for it, and then make it available for the next user. So a repetitive task out of the box, easy to use for the end users. So that's part of the enhancements that we have as part of the ITSM.
So these are the out-of-the-box things it can do just by plugging it in, grading it, and off we go. And these are some very common things that customers own this product today that they do manually still today, and they don't even know any better. Charlie, conversations you're having with customers around the built-in workflows?
Well, really around trying to stop leveraging multiple consoles, right? So a lot of teams do focus on trying to get some of the integrations of Director over into ServiceNow to be able to do some of these actions and simplify some of their daily activities by being able to do those actions within the ServiceNow console, similar to what you're seeing here, right? It's not just something for the employee to be able to go and do self-service, but also to improve the IT team's ability to manage those sessions and do those resets for themselves within the ServiceNow console itself. So it's all really around that single pane of glass again. Customers trying to leverage more of what they have and figure out how to make it easy and simple to leverage. And this really talks about being able to integrate that into ServiceNow without having to go back to Director and do a lot of those activities.
And Amir, how do you guys decide which ones are you guys going to put in next? You and Charlie both.
That's a great question.
The activities that are called in the most would be
Yeah.
All the discussions that I have with customers, because I part of the enterprise side of the house, and one of the most important conversation I have is this customer wanted to see if they can use the ServiceNow integration just to reduce for cost reduction for third-party vendors for monitoring events, and definitely pulling data from Director, from analytics, from all the different ADM in a single pane of glass. It will give you the proactive or reactive actions that you're going to have. So putting in front of the customer, I think that the first use case that we're going to be discussing with customers is session reset.
Yeah.
Session reset is the number one, and from there, just start customizing the workflows depending on the use case for each customer.
I mean, let's just walk through here. Session reset, no brainer, been needed forever. Deprovisioning static desktops. Maybe we make a backup of it, deprovision it, and if somebody needs it back later, we can figure that out and bring it back to them. Assigning users and AD groups when processing tickets associated with requesting desktops. I mean, all three of those are old school Citrix 101 things that I bet 99 point something % of shops out there are still doing manually. Geremy, would you agree with that?
I would probably agree, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they don't know. All right, Geremy, I think we might have lost Todd. He might have. I may have missed the chat.
No, I think we lost him. We're top of the hour, so we probably lost him.
Yeah, no worries. Geremy, the built-in workflows, the ones that are coming next. What are your thoughts on these?
Well, I love the fact that we've got some out-of-the-box workflows. So listen, if you don't have a lot of skill set in ServiceNow, that's fine. I think we've got a great place to start, which I think is the real point here. But, ultimately you can get as fancy as you need to, as creative as you need to. And I think a lot of it just is understanding your business processes. What do you need to support? I think you can wrap, workflow around it. But at the very least, reset sessions. It's the number one, lowest hanging fruit, they say.
Yeah,
it's easy to do. Mm-hmm.
Well, I love that you guys are called out. You got to understand your own processes and what's missing. Start with like what Charlie or Amir both mentioned. What are people calling you the most about? Let's fix that first. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hey guys, thanks again. I know we're at the top of the hour and you have to drop. I'm sure you got other calls to be on, but I appreciate the time, and we'll get the word out there and get more people adopting ServiceNow as it relates to Citrix. It's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
See you soon.